Good morning, everybody. Sorry about that. Small little bit of a technical delay there with the Wi-Fi and need to reboot it. So we're going to get cracking now shortly. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar on how to become an MMA conditioning specialist. So I'm going to give it a few moments before people join on and then get to the flow. My apologies, we're running a few moments late. Bit of a technical difficulty there logging on to the Wi-Fi. So today's talk is going to be how you can maximize the benefit of your conditioning sessions specifically for MMA guys and girls. Reason being, there's quite a lot of different consensus out there on what people believe is going to get the best results for their actual athlete, but it's fundamentally important that the conditioning protocols you do suit the volume that your athlete is actually currently doing and to maximize the benefit with the specificity. So without any further delay, let's get into the slideshow. Hopefully everyone can see this. Okay, so today's topic, again, as I mentioned, is going to be how to improve your conditioning specialist area for MMA athletes. And I'm going to focus on 5 key conditioning areas. Now, I've done 2 different webinars in the past. One was on iso circuit in relation to MMA conditioning, so I definitely suggest you check that out. If I mention isometric training and the protocol I use, this is the video I suggest you go and get some more information on. The next one here is energy system training for power development. So a lot of times when guys are putting programs together for the MMA athletes, they focus a lot on power development. However, the goal of the program is power development, but that doesn't come across with the repetitions, with the rest, with the explosivity, with the amount of weight lifted and the intensity. The intensity of the movement and the rest for the central nervous system will then dictate the body's response. So although you might be doing plyometric type movements, dynamic movement, Olympic lifting movement, you might be using bands or chains or weight releasers in your conditioning protocols. Unfortunately, if you do that without the correct recovery for the central nervous system, you're going into conditioning rather than power development. And that's the key thing that I talk about on that presentation. So you can go off and see that on YouTube for more information. Okay, so today's first tip is, what is the priority? And as I did a podcast yesterday with Brian Peters, and we talked about MMA conditioning, and one of the components we talked about is, what's your goal? And knowing what your priority is. So when an athlete comes to you, not all the time, but the majority of times with MMA athletes, they're probably walking around a little bit heavier than their fight weight, which means necessarily that their goal may be to improve, not necessarily to put on muscle mass. It could be to improve speed, it could be to improve power, explosivity, or it could be to do with conditioning. And knowing which one of these areas you're trying to focus on should dictate the program design. Now, the program design is one thing. And it's called a SAID principle, specific adaptation to impose demands. And the question is, what are you asking the body? What are you asking that athlete to develop in that training session? Now, that is one thing. However, the athlete needs the right training effect, which Ian King calls the training effect, is the training stimulus plus the correct rest and recovery to adapt to that. So if you're asking someone to get bigger, get bigger, get bigger, or get faster, get faster, get faster, you need to give the body the right recovery in order for that response to take place. Now, when it comes to, we want to call it on a continuum, frequency of training, for example, you can do a lot of conditioning work at a high frequency. And that's no problem because it hits more of the type 2A muscle fibers, because it's more of a cardiovascular stress and not necessarily a central nervous system stress. The frequency can be higher. The more you move from the metabolic stress or the muscular stress towards the nervous system stress with speed, with explosivity, with heavy lifting, the less frequent you can do this form of training and the more recovery you need. So if you think of a long continuum, when it's fast, explosive, and heavy, it's less frequent with more recovery. When it's more about capacity, when it's more about fitness and conditioning, and you want to call it cardiovascular focus work, the more frequent you can do that with the less recovery you need in between it. However, we need to know where we are. And unfortunately, there's only 3 sports, in my opinion, 3 sports in the world that weightlifting directly impacts performance. That's Olympic weightlifting, that's powerlifting, and that's CrossFit. Everybody else is in the weight room. Everyone else that goes to the gym, all they're trying to do is improve their body's conditioning for their sport, jump higher, have better fitness capacity, go to their peak speed multiple times, change directions, acuity, skill technique. recovery. So knowing that those three sports are only really benefited from weightlifting, don't be focusing so much on weightlifting. Focus on getting the athlete conditioned with the specific priority that you need to work for that person with the correct recovery. The recovery then will focus on how frequently you can train someone. So if you're doing heavy lifting with an athlete, particularly an MMA guy, my opinion will be twice a week. Reason being is the amount of volume they're doing during the week is massive. So if you do more sessions, you're actually opening up the area of injury, plus you're mitigating the possible positive adaptations from doing the workout itself. So in summary, know what you're focusing on for that client. You've only got one arse, you can't sit on two horses. Identify what you need to work for that athlete. Two, if it's more neurological, i.e. speed and intensity, the frequency should be less, maybe once or twice a week with long rest in between it. Then if you're going to do more capacity, more volume work, more fitness work, that can be more frequent. It can, obviously, because the intensity is less, and you can do it multiple times during the week with not necessarily a huge amount of recovery based on your athlete's conditioning levels. Second thing there is power versus capacity. And this is one of those chicken or egg situations. I would much prefer for my athletes to be more powerful and get a fight done early on in the round, rather than having a lower power output but could go all day and just get beaten, already drowned. And there's always a happy medium for every single athlete. Now, to develop someone's power takes a substantially longer period of time. I could take any athlete in and in 6 weeks make them super fit. However, I couldn't take an athlete in 6 weeks and get them super powerful. So what I focus on here, off season, we work on strength. We work on getting someone strong enough and then making them more powerful. Capacity should always be there. You should be always doing a little bit of fitness work, aerobic work, capacity work, and then you can peak it towards the actual fight camp. But in relation to if you have a fight camp of 6 or 12 weeks, you're not going to necessarily get someone more powerful. What you do is you see where their power output is and improve their capability of reproducing that level of power. So in the focus of power versus capacity, I like my guys to be as powerful as they physically can and then have the capacity to reproduce that power. But breaking a new ceiling of power takes a very long period of time. Again, as I said, because it's more neurological, it needs maybe only 2 or 3 sessions a week, maybe only 2 sessions a week, and the frequency of rest in between it is substantially higher. You need a long time to recover in between it. That's the central nervous system needs that time to recover. Now, having said that, power versus capacity is muscle specific. And I talk about this at length on other webinars. But just because you can run doesn't mean that you can box. Just because you can box doesn't mean that you can grapple. Just because you can grapple doesn't mean you're good at jiu-jitsu, even though jiu-jitsu. So the problem is your power and capacity is specific to the movement, it's specific to the muscle. So make sure that when you're working on someone's capacity, that you're working on the capacity with all the dynamics of their skill set, both with striking, both with grappling, both and groundwork as well. We need to work on all the areas, not just one. Next one here is volume control. So when you look at your training week, one of the things I did, I train a lot of wrestlers over in Azerbaijan. I'm lucky enough to have won 9 medals at the 2016 Olympics. And one of the things that I forced on was controlling their volume. Just because you're training doesn't mean you're getting results. Results don't happen in the gym. Results don't happen in the weight room. Results, you don't get fitter on the bike. You ask a question and you stimulate the body with X amount of volume. And that volume hopefully is what's called the overload principle. You challenge someone's body to be able to do a little bit more, give them to correct them with the recovery so the body comes back and be able to do a little bit more. However, when you see an MMA's training schedule, you might have Muay Thai, you might have boxing, you might have wrestling, you might have jiu-jitsu, and you have to look at the whole volume training. So when you're putting your program together from an S&C point of view and from a conditioning point of view, you need to take into consideration what else demands are placed on that athlete during the week. So if you've ever done wrestling, you'll know that it's a very isometric dominant. So there's quite a lot of lactic acid buildup. So if you are going to do some conditioning work in those times, maybe do more leg work, or maybe do more rower, or maybe do more skier, or maybe do some more, assault bike, and mixing up the volume that you're placing on the athlete, i.e. bringing the volume down sometimes, or if they had didn't have a hard sparring session, maybe you increase the volume. But the volume must be specific to the weekly stress on that particular athlete. And if you don't know that, you need to know it before you start putting together a conditioning workout. So one, know what their volume is outside of the gym, i.e. in their actual technical skill set, boxing, sparring, wrestling, whatever it may be, then you need to complement that. We as conditioning coaches need to know that we complement their main coaches. We are our secondary coaches. We want to improve their actual physical conditioning so they can perform their skills at a higher level, higher level of power output and reducibility and reproducibility. So for us, control the volume, because the key to overtraining is controlling the volume. Believe it or not, you can overtrain by intensity and overtrain by volume. Well, volume tends to be the one that the majority of athletes overdo. They're not recovering enough. And I hear this word overtraining, under resting, whatever it may be, is, but you have to work in recovery days. An off day is not a recovery day. There needs to be some sort of intervention, saunas, flotation therapy, Normatec trousers, massage, contrast showers, cryotherapy, massage guns, foam rolling. There needs to be an actual intervention to modulate the volume, because there's a lot of mechanical, it's stress in the body. A lot of, if you've ever done jiu-jitsu, you end up in very weird positions. You need to keep the body aligned and control that volume. Otherwise, you're going to get into the cage with multiple injuries. And most guys and girls have some sort of issue going on, maybe lower back, maybe neck. So volume control and, you know, keeping those things in alignment throughout the week is crucially important. The next one there, guys, is drop the bodybuilding. I see this, every time people make the weight cut, they throw up their biceps. Having big biceps is moronic for MMA. Not only does it make the arms bigger, it makes grappling harder, and makes sure when you do a bit of stuff against the cage or grappling against the cage, when you go to throw hands again, they're much more substantially heavier. Plus, you know, increasing the cross-sectional area of a muscle doesn't necessarily improve the speed. Actually, it can actually slow it down if not done correctly. And it causes the more blood flow, more weight to be in the arms. So the bodybuilding style training, in my opinion, should be gone. Possibly maybe on some off season, if you're looking to change some weight class, modalities or aspects of hypertrophy and bodybuilding training can be implemented. However, when it comes to relative sport, and what I mean by that is a sport that has a weight classification, bodybuilding training increases the size of a muscle. It doesn't necessarily increase the function of it, as in functioning for MMA. Increasing the size of a muscle in some situations can improve the function of specific movements. But in relation to MMA, it doesn't help. We want to be fast, we want to be explosive, and we want to be able to reproduce that amount of speed and explosivity multiple times through the rounds. Bigger muscles that require more glycogen, more blood flow, you know, more energy in a slow, controlled manner is not advantageous necessarily in an MMA setting. Maybe when you get to super heavyweight, it can be a different situation. So guys focusing on how they look and abs and biceps doesn't necessarily cross over to enhance performance. And as a conditioning coach, what we're looking to do is everything we do in the gym, we're looking to enhance the performance in the cage. We're looking to enhance the recovery from their training. We're looking to modulate their volume of the workout they're doing outside the gym. So there needs to be a bigger picture approach. And the last one here goes is test and retest. Are you making your fighters fitter? Well, I don't know. Are you making them more powerful? I don't know. Are you making them more be able to reproduce that power output multiple times? I don't know. So we need to test. You don't necessarily need super fancy testing. You could do a situation where you say, okay, you can do 10 chin-ups. Okay, I want you to do 10 chin-ups and break, you know, a minute and do 10 chin-ups again and see how long you can maintain that power output. And they're explosive chin-ups. They're not just slow, methodical chin-ups. It could be med ball throws. How far can you throw the med ball throw? Multiple times with breaks in between it. Your penta jump, your standing long jump, your vertical jump. It could be your bodyweight dips. It could be your isometric holds. It could be your VO2 max. It could be your power output on an assault bike for 10 seconds. What's your max peak output? What's the highest watts you can sustain on a rower? How fast can you do 500 meters in a ski erg? I don't mind what the test is, but in order for, and it doesn't have to be super scientific. It doesn't have to be a VO2 mask on for it, but it needs to be of multiple different dimensions. It needs to be of different muscle mass, because we're fit in different muscles. We're not always fit to run. Running and the cadence and the elasticity in the legs doesn't necessarily happen in the cage. Well, unless you're running away from someone or chasing someone down, but you don't have multiple strides. It's the concentric, eccentric, it's the change in direction, it's the isometric, it's then the up and down, it's quads, it's glutes, it's hamstring, it's off your back, it's off the cage, you know, it's in the middle of the cage. So you need to be able to condition the muscular system to be able to reproduce power multiple times, improve that power and the reproducibility. So maybe you say, okay, well, I see someone isometric endurance is weak. We're going to work on that. Maybe we're using sandbags. Maybe we're doing medicine balls. Maybe we're doing grappling and then we're doing a ski erg. Maybe we're doing a rower and then we go on to the bag, whatever it may be. And we need to make sure the test you pick that you can reproduce it. So for me, we use watt bikes quite a lot. And I don't mean solely. So every time someone trains, I might use a watt bike one time. I'm talking about conditioning here, not strength training. Conditioning in relation to improving someone's capacity. We have watt bikes, versa climbers, assault bikes. We use inertia waves. We use rowers. We use ski aids. And why I like these machines is because we can get someone to a very high power output. And I have a number of videos on interval training. But for me, I don't care about the time. People talk about time as if time is the only one thing that dictates the energy system. It's not. What dictates the energy system is the intensity. The muscle stimulates the heart. So using a heart rate monitor or a chest strap, we strongly recommend, but it doesn't give you an indication of anaerobic output. It gives you an indication of the cardiovascular system and how it recovers and how the lactic acid can get removed. But for me, I always give people what I call a personalized intensity indicator. What wattage am I looking for? What output am I looking for? How far I want that medicine ball thrown? How high I want you to jump? How high the box is going to be? And having that, performance ceiling, that's where I want them to maintain it. So for example, if I put you on an assault bike, and let's say the drill I do, it's 10 seconds on, 50 seconds off. I challenge you on a fitness test and find out what your output should be for your wattage. So let's say, for example, I get on the assault bike and I need to maintain 800 watts. For 10 seconds, my 10 seconds doesn't start till I hit that 800 watts. I maintain that 800 watts and then I recover the slow pace, maybe 100 watts for 50 seconds. And then I reproduce that. 10 seconds on, 50 seconds off is 60 seconds. I repeat that 5 times, which is a 5-minute round, a minute off, and I go again. And sometimes I might do around 1, 2, and 3 on the assault bike. Some days I might go assault bike, row, or skiing. Sometimes I could go grappling, assault bike, versa climber. I mix it up. But then I can always see on the machine that you're getting fitter and fitter. I check someone's Whoop band or Aura ring. I check out their resting heart rate. I check out their HRV, heart rate variability, and see someone's recovery. And that way, for me, I can test and retest to make sure my athletes are getting fitter, they're not getting burnt out, and they get their fitness is directly translating into the actual cage itself. Ian King wrote a book on the transfer of strength training, and there's only one real activity you can do that's sport specific, and that's the sport. So don't try to be focusing too much on replicating movements in the gym that look similar to what goes on the cage. Build better athletes. Offset and balance. Running will not necessarily get you fit for fighting. No, it won't get you fit for fighting. Yes, it hits the cardiovascular system, but the cardiovascular system is an engine. It pumps the blood out to the wheels or the muscles of your body. But a lot of times people are cardiovascularly fit, but muscly and nervous system not that fit. So you need to be able, that muscles be able to take in the oxygen, get rid of the lactate, and reproduce the activity again. And you only get that by doing upper body movement, pressing movement, pulling movement, isometric movement on the floor, on the cage, on your back, explosive movements. And that doesn't happen if you just go out running. Yes, you hit a certain heart rate zone, but the crossover and the complementary impact that it has on MMA conditioning is minimal. And that's why I stress people, take a scientific approach, watch the volume, prioritize your training, make sure you know if you're working on power or capacity. Then we test and retest, and we steer away from bodybuilding training. Unfortunately, a lot of people are focused, have taken bodybuilding training and brought it into strength and conditioning, where in my opinion, it shouldn't be that way. Bodybuilding is for aesthetics. Bodybuilding is for, muscle growth, powerlifting, Olympic lifting. They're different components. We're building better athletes to perform better at a sport. Having big traps, having huge biceps can be counterproductive in the MMA world. And yes, I know barbells and dumbbells are in every gym. That doesn't mean you have to use it. Single leg work, machine work, med ball work, kettlebell work can be very advantageous if structured correctly, prioritized correctly, specific for your athlete, and you can test and retest to see if you're getting improvement. Okay, so that's pretty much it for today. What I do have is, I do have a certification course coming out on MMA conditioning specialist, which if you're interested in attending, please do let me know. What I want to get some feedback, if you don't mind. If one, you'd like to do the course in practice, so it'll be a 3-day seminar in this facility here in Malahide in Dublin, where we actually go through all the components of assessing an athlete, how to put together speed, power, isometric, explosivity, conditioning, testing the athletes and checking out their volume, or do it all online. Me personally, I prefer to do courses in person, but if something that you're interested in, please do DM me on Instagram and I'll add you onto the Own Lazy Education forum, and then we can have a longer communication about what we can do to maybe blend the approach. The guys that are away in other countries, if you wanted myself and the educational team to come to your facility and do the certification program in your club, that also can be arranged. Other than that, guys, thank you so much. I hope I haven't gone over time. I'm pretty much, I'm just under it. So hope you guys have a nice weekend. I hope you enjoy the content. Any questions, any comments, any feedback, please let me know. I know I talk super fast and I'm Irish. You can slow that down on the 0.5 or 0.75 if you need to. Thank you so much for your time and have a great day.